There's a lot going on September 2nd through 4th, 2025, according to the astrology. This is a busy and complex time. It's one of those weeks where it's extra beneficial to slow down and process, even though it might be really challenging to find the time to do that. I'm excited to talk about all of it with you today. Let's start here with the fact that Saturn is retrograde in Pisces. This is a big deal, and I've talked about it quite a lot, so I won't go into it too much here. But just to say, we had several years of Saturn working through the sign of Pisces, the sign and house of Pisces, depending on where it falls for you. You might want to think about that life area, those life areas, if you know what Pisces rules in your chart, because those themes could be coming back a little bit here for a couple of months. We may have a little bit of a return, but I think that it's really important, most important, to keep in mind that we're not moving backwards here. It might kind of feel like you're doing a lot of things that maybe you thought were behind you or over with. It might feel like a return to some problems that haven't surfaced since 2024. It's interesting the way in which Saturn is pulling apart this outer planet triangle. Let me mark that on our chart too, because that's really significant. I always like to say that I mark these parts on the chart in case you are studying astrology and you find that helpful. And if you just want to listen and enjoy the astrology, my hope is that these videos work for you too. I hope that they're sort of meeting you wherever you are with your interest in astrology. That's always my intention. Okay, so we've had this outer planet triangle between Pluto in Aquarius, Neptune in Aries, sorry, it's a little obscured there, and Uranus in Gemini. We've had this with us all summer. And by coincidence, Saturn was there too, conjunct Neptune in the early degrees of Aries. And I just think it's interesting that now Saturn is sort of the one guiding this outer planet triangle apart, right? It's not pulling it apart. It can't. It's between Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. But Saturn's sort of saying, hey guys, I think we forgot something. We have some responsibilities that we need to attend to before we fully step into this new era. It's so interesting the way we had this triangle with us all summer. And then this fall, it's going to sort of pull apart a bit. Neptune will be back in Aries. Uranus will be back in Taurus. Pluto will remain in Aquarius. And I think that's very important because these planets won't be harmonizing the way that they are now. But I think what's important for this week, part of the complexity is definitely that Saturn has moved back into Pisces. I'm kind of feeling this. A little bit of a return to like an energy that I haven't felt for a little while, or some tasks or some questions or some challenges arising that, maybe I thought I'd mostly dealt with, but they're coming back to the surface. And then I think you can just kind of feel a little bit of a switch. And I mean, that's this time of year, right? We're now on the other side of Labor Day. It's a different feeling when we are into September, wherever you live in the world, whether you're in the States or not. That feeling of September is really different than the summer. So this outer planet triangle sort of gave us a little bit of a taste this summer of what this new era was going to look like. Outer planets change signs quite rarely. And all three of these planets are shifting from late 2024 to mid 2026. Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. That's really interesting. And astrologers have had our eye on it for years. And so the fact that we're in this transition period right now, or we're coming into that energy, is really exciting. And it's a lot to process. Back to the theme of it being a busy and complex week. So I think that we got a taste of what this new era looks like over the summer. And now this fall, starting with Saturn here, sort of showing the way, we're starting to think about, okay, before I step into that, what do I need to do? What do I need to take responsibility for? What do I need closure on? Just within myself, right? I think trying to get closure in the external world can be tough, but if there's something internal that we need to let go of, and this threshold isn't like most. We're not just going from one sign to the next. We're going from Pisces to Aries. We're going from the end of the zodiac to the beginning of the zodiac. So it has that much more of a potent feel, of an idea that things are ending and things are beginning. It is about more than that, though. Anyway, there's a lot to process just with this, and I haven't even talked about some of the other things happening in the sky here too. I have several more transits to discuss, but just to say, even just this is very significant. We stepped into this new era collectively and in our own lives a little bit this summer. We got a little bit of a preview of what this new time might look like for us and in the collective. And then now Saturn is going back, starting to pull back into the culminating energies, the wrapping up energies of things left undone or that need closure, that need our attention before we can step more fully into that time. That alone is a lot to process. It makes me think about that saying, that you should meditate for 20 minutes every day. And if you don't have the time to meditate for 20 minutes, you should meditate for an hour, right? It's sort of one of those weeks where we don't really have the time to process, but the most important thing we can do is process. We don't really have the time to slow down, but the most important thing we can do is slow down. When things are going fast, it's very good to go slow. I'm reminding myself right now as well. I feel like even as I'm sharing this, my mind is a little racy. I have all these different things in my head that I want to say, and I can't say them all at the same time. I have to take it one at a time. And so slowing down helps me get in touch with each of the steps and cover everything thoroughly, just as an example. But in general, it's one of those weeks where there's a lot going on, and it might be hard to process and slow down, but it's actually the best thing that we can do. Okay, I'm actually going to change. I'm going to move that just a little bit because we have enough that we're going to add that I don't want to clutter the chart too much like I have in the past. All right, next I want to mention this line. We have the North Node here in Pisces. We have Jupiter here exalted in Cancer, and they're in a trine right now. And I covered this in the report for the weekend, so I won't say too much, but just to say, these connections with the North Node, you know what I want to mention too? I want to mention that also this Jupiter is sextile to the South Node. See that? I tend to just focus on trines, and that feels like the most significant part, but Jupiter is harmoniously connecting with both of the nodes, with the nodes in general. And that gives what's happening this week sort of a faded feeling, like a feeling of destiny, like a sense of destiny to things, sort of aligning with our path. Like it can feel like you're expanding into your destiny. I made a little mistake. I guess it is a little mistake, but I felt funny that I had written in my last report that it was a fateful weekend. And fateful is a very ominous word. And I don't know why, but when I first when I wrote it, when I got that live together the evening before, it just didn't click for me that that was the case. And it wasn't until about noon the next day that I was like, wait, fateful though is kind of negative, and I don't mean it that way. I meant that it was like a very fateful weekend, that we were sort of um, uh, uh, I meant that it was like full of fate, you know, that it was a fated weekend. And that word, like almost like, I don't know. And anyway, that was my mistake. And we are all working with the South Node in Virgo at releasing perfectionism, not needing to do everything perfectly. Instead, with the North Node in Pisces, moving towards sort of bigger picture understanding of things, seeing the bigger picture, sort of relaxing into that without everything needing to be perfect. So anyway, we have these connections as well with the nodes this week, and that brings that fated feeling into our experience a little bit. A feeling like we're expanding Jupiter into our destiny, the nodes. Be on the lookout for amazing connections with people and emotional depth within those connections. There might be some synchronicities. You might notice some things like that. If you're someone who sees little synchronicities here and there, you might notice them around this time. Good to pay attention to that. You know, it's an amazing week with these connections with the nodes to sort of have faith in the journey, uh, Jupiter and the nodes, and faith with Pisces. Again, that sort of attending to the details, taking care of the details, but forgiving ourselves when it isn't perfect, and relaxing a little bit into the process. Doing what we can, but also knowing we can't control everything. It's also a great week just to pay attention to emotions, because there's wisdom in the emotions and they're helping with direction. So noticing how you're feeling about things and using that as a bit of a compass. You know, is your energy boosted by spending time with this person? Are you energized by it, or are you drained? How do you feel about different tasks you have to do before you're doing them, as you're getting ready to do them, or while you're doing them, or once they're done? Just sort of noticing those different things all along the way, and using those emotions sort of as a conversation with yourself. You know, how am I feeling? What do I like? What don't I like? Being open to that moving and changing a little bit, or that going back a little bit to the way it was earlier in the year with everything we have going on with Saturn here. Also, Jupiter is connecting with Mars. Mars in Libra and Jupiter in Cancer. We need to talk about this too, because it adds a layer to this Jupiter story. So again, we're talking about Jupiter, and see, we have this other line coming up here to Mars in Libra. And this is a square, but even though there's some difficult things about it, I see a lot of positivity here. So Mars in Libra sometimes can be a little bit challenging, just because Mars is happier other places. Mars in Libra has to stop and consider and listen to everyone's opinion and make sure that everyone is involved in the decision-making process. And Mars doesn't love to do that. Mars loves to be in Aries, where it can just charge ahead boldly. And so Mars in Libra can be a very diplomatic stage for Mars. But I think that also Mars is asked to fight for peace, and that's sort of an interesting like conundrum. And I think sometimes that puts Mars in a funny position when it's in Libra. But the reason that I think that Mars is kind of happy here anyway is that it just came off of a really heavy transit, right? First of all, I like a little diplomacy right now. I think it's needed. We have so much heavy Aries energy, and I just like the energy that Mars was bringing to that kite pattern. When it was earlier in Libra, it was connecting with this outer planet triangle in a really dynamic way that I discussed in my August horoscopes. Um, and now Mars is past that. So it just learns so much from connecting with that outer planet kite, you know? And it's feeling very diplomatic and ready to listen to others and ready to fight for peace. And then Jupiter in Cancer is exalted. This is Jupiter's favorite place to be. Jupiter can sort of be extra Jupiter here. It can do its thing without restriction. It's home, right? And also, we've had a lot going through Cancer lately. We had a Mars retrograde here earlier this year that felt really heavy. And now Jupiter has covered that ground and is going through the part of the sky that Mars retrograde interacted with. And so I think that they've both learned a lot, and they're both kind of in good moods, even though this is a square. So it's kind of an interesting signature. I think that we could look out for things like overdoing it. You know, this is the kind of transit where we could think that more of a good thing is even better, and it isn't. So you can sort of do too much. You know, it can also just be taking on too much, doing things too fast. Again, this is suggesting that energy of the busy week that I talked about, that I mentioned here in the title. It does feel like a busy week. So this can be doing too much, going too fast. It can suggest maybe some conflict, like that there are a lot of wants and desires, but that they conflict a bit. Different people having different wants and desires that Mars in Libra is trying to balance, and that Jupiter in Cancer really, really cares about. This is an aspect where I would advise the slowing down. Again, slowing down when things are going fast, not acting impulsively. We might feel compelled to act quickly with something like this, but generally it's a good idea not to do that and to slow a little. And so that would be my recommendation for this piece, right? So we have so much going on, sort of putting this all together so far. I have one more thing to add though, but just to pause for a minute, put together what we already have. We have this faded feeling. We have the return to old projects, old thoughts and concerns and responsibilities that we need to wrap up while this sort of new era is happening around us at the same time. And then some feelings of wanting to get a lot done, of having a lot of needs and wants that we're trying to balance, just sort of having a lot going on. Okay, and so the last thing that I want to add for this week that gives us a sense of this Tuesday through Thursday. Usually I do these reports on, what color should I use? Let's use green. Usually I do these reports on Mondays and Fridays, but because of the holiday weekend, I did Tuesday this week, but I will be back on Friday. Whoops. I will be back on Friday to talk about the eclipse. There is a lunar eclipse in Pisces in just a few days, and we are very, very much in the build up to that. And that makes this time feel busy and complex as well. A lot happens during eclipse season. A lot tends to move. So we also have that going on. And I also talked quite a lot about that in my September horoscopes. If you'd like to see where that falls for you, best watched for your rising sign. Your sun sign is the next best thing. Okay, so We also have Mercury connecting with Uranus. Also, thank you all so much for your comments. I am going to read them as soon as I'm done with this and respond. It was one of those weeks where it felt so complex that I haven't really looked at the comments while I was talking just yet, but I'm going to look at them at the very end. So if you have questions or anything, let me know. Okay, so we have Mercury and Uranus, and they are in square. Mercury recently moved into Virgo. We have Uranus here in Gemini, hasn't been there that long either. You know, again, I feel the mental busyness, but this is more of a mental busyness. With Mars, it felt more like there's a lot going on, a lot we're trying to balance. This is more of a mentally sort of busy, all over the place. Maybe a little bit overwhelmed, or some surprises could come up. This could be unusual news, unusual words, conversations. I think it's interesting that we have an outer planet here, which is tied to all the other outer planets, and we have a personal planet. So this could be something in the news. It could be something in the world. It could be something in our lives. It could be a little bit of both. But it could be sort of mental ideas or insights or thinking that feels a little disruptive, that feels a little sudden, that brings about maybe some surprises or some realizations. I feel like Virgo sort of likes order, and Gemini sort of likes change. So it's almost like those two things are sort of both trying to be heard this week. It's like we have to try to be grounded and logical, but also be doing something new. But yeah, I think that's a really, really interesting signature, throwing some surprises, some news, some turns, some sudden changes into the mix of everything that we have going on here, as if it wasn't a busy enough week. And we are in eclipse season, so that just makes it extra busy. It definitely does. So I am going to take a look at my comments now. I just want to say thank you all so much for your comments, for being here, for watching. Hello to Summer and CJ and Namira. Saturn through your fifth house. Someone's talking about Saturn through their fifth house and how it can be difficult. And it's interesting, Saturn through the fifth house, what I can think can be hard about Saturn through the fifth house, relationship stuff for sure sometimes, but what really I notice sometimes is like it's almost a little bit harder to feel like you can have fun, to feel like you can enjoy yourself. That fun and leisure and joy part of the fifth. It's like it's a serious time. You know, you have stuff you have to do. And Saturn kind of restricts the fun and the joy a little bit. It signifies that the fun and the joy are being restricted within us so that we can get to take care of this important business that we need to take care of. It's like there's a lot to do, or it could just be a time where it's a little difficult with the fun and the joy. But one thing I'll say that I love about astrology is I love the way in which it shows us the timing a little bit around those things. And you know that things aren't forever. It's funny how feelings can feel so permanent. When you're feeling good, it feels like you've always felt good and you always will feel good. And when you feel bad, it feels like you've always felt bad and you always will feel bad. And I think astrology helps to remind us, even in those moments, that that's not the case, that things have their time and they move and they shift. And there's a reason for it, you know? Okay, and then someone else is saying that they have Saturn in their seventh house, going back to their seventh than it was in their eighth. Yeah, go with the flow and surrendering. Beautiful, beautiful advice. And yeah, it's wherever, if you know what your Saturn in Pisces story was about, then it's easy to sort of think about how that might be returning a little bit right now. You know, if you were sort of paying attention through that. So yeah, what little areas sort of need to be attended to? I'm thinking about that for myself as well. Oh, thank you all so much. I'm glad that this setup works for you. Yeah, there are a lot of 18 degrees in here for sure. And the early degrees as well. The first couple degrees and 18 degrees. If you have things, if you have planets or points in those degrees, they're particularly active right now. Oh yes, a Saturn return. I didn't really fully understand my Saturn return until I was like in my 40s. I think I thought I knew what it was about, but there were things going on that were more significant than I really realized at the time. Um, yeah. Okay. I think that I'm going to leave it there for today. I appreciate you all so, so much. And I hope that you have a wonderful week. I'll be back again on Friday. I'll attach some other videos here that are relevant to the current astrology. I think I might put something in there about Neptune and Aries because we didn't talk about that at all. So I'm going to attach Neptune and Aries. And also I'm going to put something up about why I think astrology works, how I think astrology is sort of signifying what's going on for us, not causing it. I haven't shared that for a little while. So in case anyone's interested, I'm going to post that too. It takes a while for me to be able to, for YouTube to fully upload these videos and me to be able to attach those end screens. So it probably won't go up until, oh my goodness, CJ, oh my goodness, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Wow, I really appreciate that. I received a nice, beautiful gift from CJ. I appreciate you. That's wonderful. That's actually um, the first uh, the first gift I've received in that way. So thank you very much. I appreciate you. Um, what was I just saying? I lost my train of thought. Oh, that it takes a while for those end screens to be loaded, but I will put them up. Um, they'll probably be up by tomorrow, by Wednesday morning, Wednesday, maybe even Tuesday night. Okay, thank you everyone so much, and CJ especially, thank you, and everyone for being here. Check out my videos and have a wonderful week. Bye.